This is how we find out if we're really on Operation Firestorm. And as I'd hoped for, it actually works. Welcome to Operation Firestorm. Now this map probably feels like home to a lot of you. It featured in Battlefield 3, it also featured in Battlefield 4's Second Assault DLC, and finally it returns home to the front of the franchise with Battlefield 6. Operation Firestorm makes up one of two of the largest maps in Battlefield 6, and if you were hoping for a faithful rendition of a map that you previously loved, you're in luck, because not only does Operation Firestorm execute a very faithful recreation of what you will remember, they even remembered some of the devil in the details. More on that later. But before we get ahead of ourselves here with Operation Firestorm nostalgia, we also got to play as part of this capture event that EA had invited us to, Mirak Valley, the largest map in Battlefield 6, and also an updated version of Battlefield 6 beyond the beta. Now, I do want to specify that this build is still work in progress, and did feature a few minor bugs that had been recognized by the developers before we went into this capture session. So if you see any air-to-air missiles instantly deleting jets because it doesn't evade from flares properly, that's just unfortunately a bug that happened to be in this build. That being said, we did get an entire new look at a very renewed arsenal of equipment that is here in Battlefield 6. Brand new primary weapons, as well as all of the customization options that are coming with those, and customization options for vehicles, including some really exciting additions that I know we were all expecting, like the ability to have an active protection system on tanks, and also the return of things like below radar for aerial vehicles. And you'll be able to see all of those extra additions and me messing around with those menus at the very end of this video, so make sure you stick around, drop a like and subscribe because we're on the road to 200k. So let's start with the burning question on everybody's tongue. For those of you who played the Battlefield beta, a lot of you were questioning whether or not there was going to be real big map combined arms experiences when this game released, and a lot of you were wondering if it was going to feel like Battlefield. Well, I'm very happy to report that Mirak Valley and Operation Firestorm are both really good combined arms experiences. They do have a little bit in some places that I'm a little unsure of, and your opinion on them probably will vary depending on how much Battlefield you've played in the past, and certain maps from the franchises previously gone that you may or may not have enjoyed. And we'll expand on more of that in a little bit. But these are the two largest maps, with Mirak Valley being the largest and Operation Firestorm being a little bit smaller than that, and they have various different layouts depending on the mode that's played, Conquest, Breakthrough, or the brand new mode Escalation, which we also got to play that we'll talk about in this video. Now, we still don't know what the Dumbo map, which is the larger New York map that does feature helicopters, is going to look like in terms of size, and we don't necessarily know what New Subic City, another potentially larger map in Battlefield 6, is going to look like in terms of size. So in terms of the overall launch package, things are a little 50-50 on whether or not there will be enough combined arms experiences, but I feel it's leaning in the right direction. Let's kick things off with Mirak Valley. Mirak Valley is a never-before-seen map for Battlefield 6, it's a brand new map to the franchise, and essentially, if you liked Golmud Railway and Hainan Resort from previous Battlefields gone, you're probably going to be a pretty big fan of Mirak Valley. Now, depending on your love or dislike for these individual maps, I think Mirak Valley is kind of the same in the sense that it offers one central location that's incredibly good for infantry fighting, a slightly offset location that's good for infantry fighting, but is otherwise a vehicular dominant space. Now, in Mirak Valley, you have two very large tower blocks slap bang in the center of the map. And these large tower blocks feature some pretty cool destructible elements both in the interior and exterior, as well as a very large crane that can completely collapse on top of these buildings and take some of them down with it. The two closer to spawn objectives are very reminiscent of something you would expect to see in something like Golmud Railway or Battlefield Bad Company 2 style villages, featuring double-story buildings, some small residential areas, but are primarily destructible and can be easy targets for vehicles. Likewise, the most adjacent objective to the tower blocks is very much a Battlefield Bad Company 2 style town, with fully destructible environments that can be completely taken out, but plays more like an infantry space and exists in a little bit of a gully as well to shield it from the vehicles around it. Now, to the north side of those two tower blocks is predominantly an open field, and I think this is a little bit of a waste. It would have nice to have been seen like something like a trench system, or maybe another one of those individual towns, but it feels as though that this space is being very much optimized for land vehicles like tanks and IFVs. And I've got to say, as somebody who loves their main battle tanks, you were able to very much move around Mirak Valley and exploit some of the smaller peaks, hills, and valleys, and get some really good shots on enemy opponents. I'm also a really big fan of the aesthetic of Mirak Valley. The beginning spawn locations for it feel very war-torn, and the actual tower blocks themselves feel quite intense for infantry fighting too. Now, in terms of air vehicles, this does feature a runway for jets and does feature helicopters as well. And actually, if you capture the sea objective in Conquest, you can get spawnable helicopters and spawnable vehicles, offering an incentive to take those objectives and keep them captured so that you may utilize some of the hardware that spawns on them. Now, personally, I didn't feel like this was the best map for air vehicles, primarily because the tower blocks in the center are the only cover that you can get, but are completely infested with RPG-wielding men sitting on the rooftops. But secondarily, just because there isn't really a lot of external cover around the edges of maps in terms of like hillsides. There is a bit of a river valley that will allow you to sink low below radar and will allow you to escape, and the re-addition of below radar has made the majority of these maps much more aerial friendly. But in Liberation Peak, I was highly praising of the fact that the surrounding area of the map featured all of these valleys and gullies for aerial vehicles to operate in, whereas Mirak Valley doesn't really have a huge amount of that, and I think that's a bit of a shame. That being said, it does feature a combined arms experience, there is the opportunity for fighter jets and helicopters to participate in this battle, and most importantly, there is the opportunity for transport helicopters, which I feel are making a return in a very big way. The UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter that allows you to float through the map with two very powerful miniguns on either side of it was absolute cinema. I really enjoyed it. I think these are a great addition to Battlefield. I think it's going to be really cool to see these in Portal, and I can very much picture in the future Bad Company 2 style infantry-only rush situations where people create their own variants of rush in Battlefield Portal that are very reminiscent of old-school rush experiences in Battlefield Bad Company 2. Overall, for me, as somebody who really liked Golmud Railway and somebody who really enjoyed Hainan Resort, I would call Mirak Valley a solid 7.5 to 8 out of 10, and I think that that number could be a little bit more higher if it gets something in the realm of variable cover on the north side of the map in that open space. But I really like a Battlefield map that allows infantry the area and opportunity to have intense gunfights and doesn't just make them expose targets to vehicles, whilst giving those vehicles a predominantly vehicular-based space for them to have the battles that you'd expect from a combined arms experience. And I think Mirak Valley does a really good job of that. It's a really hard balance to strike. It was difficult to strike it in Golmud Railway, but that's one of my favorite maps of Battlefield 4, and Mirak Valley I think is doing a firmly decent job of that in Battlefield 6. Moving on to Operation Firestorm, and I guess the burning question with this one is this a faithful rendition? And the answer is yes and no. In fact, it's yes in a lot of places I wasn't expecting it, and it's no in one place that I think is going to be mildly controversial. Now, for the Conquest variant of Operation Firestorm, they have brought the spawn locations slightly closer together. Now, this doesn't massively reduce the play space available in Operation Firestorm, but it does take away the infamous Noob Hill. Now, if you're somebody like me who absolutely despised Noob Hill and hated the fact that it was basically just a bunch of snipers sitting on a hill and probably ruining the flow of the game and not really contributing to their overarching team play and all the other reasons that we hate snipers who hit on hills, you'll probably be okay with that. But if you're somebody who isn't, that Noob Hill edition is actually in the Escalation variant, which is a slightly wider player space, and Escalation is effectively a twist on Conquest, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, so that's the only real change, I guess, with Operation Firestorm. Everything else is essentially identical to what you will remember. You have the primary road that runs through it, you have the oil derricks, you have the individual construction towns and the warehouses, and they have added some destruction to these elements. The warehouses, for example, you have the ability to completely destroy some of the air venting machines like you could in Battlefield 4, but more importantly, you can actually pop holes in the top of the ceilings as well, which is really nice to see, and the walls are very destructible too. But the primary central structures don't come down like they did in Battlefield 4, which is probably what most of us were expecting, because nobody wants a flat and empty map. Now, what's really impressive about Operation Firestorm is that they did remember some very important key details of Firestorm. For example, the ability to take off the runway with jets is back in the game as you would anticipate, but for me, the two big ones are the explosive oil derricks and the fire purge system. Now, for those of you who haven't played Battlefield in a while, it was extremely common in Operation Firestorm to blow up the oil derricks in the distance to create a smoke cloud which could be used for vehicle cover. So if you were a helicopter or you were a jet, you could destroy these oil derricks, create this massive smoke cloud, and then fly through those to give yourself visible cover and go below radar behind these oil derricks to re-engage the enemy. It was a very minimal but thoughtful, important part of Operation Firestorm, and that is back in Battlefield 6. Likewise, those of you who remember playing Operation Firestorm may remember that in Battlefield 4 Second Assault, there was a button at the bottom of the primary oil derrick to set off a fire purge at the top of the tower, which would completely eliminate any snipers camping at the top of the tower. And that button is completely back. I think Operation Firestorm offers a very well-needed combined arms experience, and some pretty good nostalgia that I wasn't expecting in Battlefield 6, but has been very nice to have, and I hope it's one of many future remasters that we hopefully see come to Battlefield 6. Firestorm for me has pretty much always been a 9 out of 10, and for me it's no different here. Now let's talk about Escalation. Escalation is a very interesting game mode, and I think it's one of the ways that Battlefield is trying to innovate without necessarily changing the wheel, and I actually appreciate them trying this new mode, and hopefully it's one of many potential modes that they attempt to go for in the future. Now, it's no secret that in the past Battlefield has tried to change Conquest. They've tried Conquest Assault, they've tried different variants of Conquest, they've tried changing how tickets work in Conquest, and all of those ultimately just upset Battlefield fans, because we like Conquest because it's Conquest, and we don't want that to change. And Escalation is a skew on what we know as classic Conquest that tries to up the stakes a little bit in a very interesting way, and kind of turns it a little bit more into something like Advance and Secure from Squad. Now, some of the gameplay in the background for this is going to lack a bit of intensity, because as a result of this capture event and how it was structured, there were a couple of games where we did just end up with bots as opposed to real players because they were filling servers in various ways, and that's unfortunate. But I did get a real feel for what they were trying to achieve with Escalation, and I think they did a very good job with it. Escalation, in a sense, is a first to 3 point system, where you start off at absolutely zero and have to hold a majority of the map in order to start ticking the score counter upward. And this can create some really interesting push versus pull scenarios. Tickets and kills have absolutely zero impact on the score in the game. It's all about who owns the majority control of the map. Each one of those capture zones is effectively separated into segments on the map, and some segments can have more than one objective. So for example, in the Escalation that we played in Mirak Valley, the first 2 segments closest to your spawn were just a single objective, and once you got into the third segment, which was the middle of the map, that could have up to 3 objectives in it. So in order to get majority control of the middle, you would have to take control of 2 of those 3 objectives to get that timer to start ticking upward. Now, this is a little bit like Advance and Secure from Squad, where you would have to chain together objectives in order to get majority control, and for those of you who haven't played that, the bonus of this mode is that it creates some very big intensity in the middle of the map, and can create some very big intensity around certain objectives as well. The bonus of Conquest is that that mode gives you some pretty good downtime in between attacking and defending, and lets you kind of just roam around freely. Whereas Escalation is a very coordinated push to create an almost a breakthrough style frontline dynamic, but in a Conquest environment. Now, you can still flank around your opponents and go and backcap one of their objectives in order to break off their majority control, and essentially this creates a really large tug-of-war dynamic where one team is battling to keep majority control, another team has to try a slew of different tactics, whether it's fully frontally assaulting the middle section with 3 objectives, or backcapping another section to pull away attention and bring players to a different location. But it creates a sort of identity that's similar to Conquest, but ups the intensity factor a little bit more. Hence the name, Escalation. Now, I will be honest, the UI for this is not fantastic. It isn't inherently clear which things you can and can't capture, and it isn't inherently clear who has majority control of the overall map. But when it starts coming together in this capture session, you really feel that sort of uptick of intensity where players are battling over some of these central objectives to get that 2-to-1 control, or perhaps even capture the entire sector and have triple cap full control of the middle sector to get that time to start ticking upward. And what's really great about this system is that because tickets from individual players don't count, you can go for some pretty risky tactics as an individual player to try and crawl back some of that tick rate. And because the timer ticks upwards and not downwards and never goes away, you're going to get some examples in the future where a game is on a knife edge, where the game is decided by a single capture that will push the timer into that 3-score requirement to win the game. It was a little bit tricky, if I'm being perfectly honest, to get a real 100% feel for how Escalation is going to play when it releases, but I do like the concept. I do like that it's something different from Conquest, and I do like that they're just trying some new things, and they're trying some things that could perhaps create a slightly better mode or a variant of a mode that we already like with a little more intensity. I think all of those things are deserving of praise, even if it doesn't necessarily completely go perfectly, but for now, I think it will be an interesting addition to the launch lineup, and I'm interested to hear you guys' thoughts and feelings below. So folks, I'm going to leave you at the end of this with me just messing around in the customization menu so you can see some of the things that were available in this build. And again, all of this is work in progress and subject to change. Some of it may change, some of it may go away, some of it may be improved upon, some of it may be expanded upon. We don't actually know until the game releases, but I think it's worth putting in the video so you can see what this is all about. And please do make sure you're subscribed. We're on the road to 200k, and I'll catch you again in the next one.
Objective marked. We need you supporting the attack. Hostiles attacking objective Delta. The enemy has secured more objectives. Let's rally and counter. The enemy has secured objective Delta. advised. The enemy has a lead on objectives held. They're about to take ground.
Right, we now hold Echo.
We've neutralized Delta. All right, we now control more objectives. Secure our defenses. Listen in. Hostiles now hold more objectives. Out. Friendlies have secured objective Delta. Be advised, move to attack the marked objective. Be advised, Delta's under attack. Air support confirmed. Pilots are ready to deploy. Stalemate or hostile forces will lock down their objective.
Be advised, hostiles are attacking objective Echo. Okay, our forces control more objectives than the enemy. The enemy has secured more objectives. Let's rally and counter.
We now hold more objectives. Keep pushing, troops. Be advised, hostiles attacking objective Delta.
Defensive position needed on the marked objective.
We're attacking objective Echo. We're attacking objective Echo. All mission objectives secured. Defensive position needed on the marked objective. objectives. Attack support needed on marked objective. Be advised, enemies are attacking objective Delta. Be advised, hostiles attacking Foxtrot. Transport helos are prepped and ready for use. Hostile forces hold more objectives. They're close to taking territory. We are attacking objective Delta. Our forces have neutralized Delta. Be advised, Charlie is under attack. We now hold Echo. We need defensive support on the marked objective. Airspace is clear. Pilots are free to engage. Hostiles are attacking objective Echo.
We're attacking Charlie. Enemy tank! Charlie has been neutralized.
Our forces control more objectives than the enemy.
Our attack on Echo is underway.
Objective marked. We need you supporting the attack.
Enemy tank! Spotted enemy base! Enemy tank destroyed! Redirect fire! Bring it down! Contact! Enemy infantry engaging!
All squads, heavy armored vehicles ready for deployment.
Contact! Enemy machine gun!
Secure all positions. Let's keep it that way.
I got enemy in sight! Contact! Enemy
Be advised, we need defensive support on the marked objective.
Enemy contact in my AO! Contact! Enemy infantry engaging! Enemy contact in my AO!
We're about to take full control of the battlefield. Stay on target. Objective Delta.
Air station.